working with first graders all day made me feel a little bit anxious, and knowing that I had this Shield test in my back pocket, knowing that each week I was being tested to see and to make sure I was healthy, again, not only for my students and my kiddos at home, but for the baby, was just so incredibly important to me.
It made me feel like really better about being at school, and I felt safer knowing that COVID probably wouldn't spread as fast.
Scaling up to almost 7,000 people in the building on any given day. We are just so grateful for having a wonderful partner to keep our employees healthy and safe.
Our most important mitigation strategy was having the ability to screen our students on a weekly basis. And I really think it made the parents, and again, the teachers, feel really good.
It looks like it's spreading through saliva. It spreads when people talk. So Marty Burke and Paul Hergenrother, who had been longtime friends and collaborators in the chemistry department, had already put together an amazing process to try to find a test that would work.
The unique saliva test invented by Shield, Illinois, has been employed as a way to prevent COVID outbreaks. And at some of those schools, the results have been nothing short of extraordinary.
We proved that it worked. And it was fast, it was reliable, it was easy to administer. And I think the general feeling from the entire organization, from the institutional leadership on down, was that if we did not avail ourselves of these capabilities and this technology to help protect the public good, that would be a complete moral failure on our part.
We were absolutely building Shield, Illinois as we were trying to figure out what to do.
You're an epidemiologist. What do we do? How often do we test people? How do we choose who to test and who not to test?
So step one for me was finding some really talented individuals to be able to help in pulling this off.
Processing, the sorting, the delivery, the distribution to the labs, and then they have their own processes of testing.
3 events occurred that changed life as we knew it at Shield, Illinois. The first is when the state offered free testing for every K-12 school in the state. The second is when the Test to Stay program was implemented, which allowed students and staff to stay in school as long as they tested negative for COVID-19. And finally, the third event that occurred was when the governor's office issued an executive order requiring all unvaccinated faculty and staff to participate in a weekly screening program. And after all that, the demand for our testing program exploded.
Not only were we able to turn them around quickly, but we were also able to turn them around from a quality perspective as well. So that was something I was always extremely proud of, especially labs doing, somewhere near 13,000 a day.
The amount that we saved the state, we estimate was probably, the cost of our test was probably 1/2 to 1/3 of the cheapest other alternatives. So that translated to, likely hundreds of millions of dollars of savings for the taxpayers of Illinois.
Thanks so much for getting the video going. Figured that could tell the story way better than I could, right? Pretty good video? Yeah, solid. So this story is really our story, the story of everybody in the room in some way, shape, or form. So many of our partners are here, so many of the Shield, Illinois folks, so many of the individuals that we worked with to make this all happen. So I'm going to try and pick up where Dr. Artie Barnes left off earlier today. Before I jump into it, here's just the overall stats, and really what we're most proud of is the reach that we had across the state. through all the K through 12 schools, the universities, all the various community sites. The 7 million tests ran. It's a lot of saliva to collect. And really just a logistics system that was able to handle the entire state, which I want to jump into. There's 5 key insights that we've taken away from our Shield, Illinois experience. These are the 5 that every chance I get to tell our story, I'm talking about these are the 5 things that we need to be thinking about in the future. Any future pandemic response, in our opinion, these are the 5 keys. This is where I'm going to pick up where Dr. Artie Barnes left off, talking about these 5 and just going a little bit more in depth. Turns out saliva is pretty incredible for collection. And early on, the federal government was really looking at how do they invest in lab capacity. Everything was about lab capacity. The longest time, every conversation would come up, where's lab capacity? The reality is the lab capacity was not where the constraints were. The constraints were how do you go out and physically collect 50 or 100,000 samples a day from folks? That's the hard part. Adding lab capacity really wasn't. And even a year and a half into this, still preaching the same thing, it's about how you collect. This is where saliva was really incredible because really anybody could collect it. It didn't matter who it was. Off a very short training video, you are now able to collect. So then we're able to actually then scale very quickly and positively affect the population. Dr. Burke later will talk more about why saliva is so great in the lab in terms of how it eliminates the extraction process and everything else, but really focusing on what is easy to collect. This didn't take a phlebotomist. Second key thing is now how do you very quickly get that sample to the lab? Because as we learned, speed really mattered. If we are trying to isolate, mitigate the virus, keep it from spreading, the best way to do that is you got to get fast results. And that doesn't matter if you're collecting from Southern Illinois or from Chicago. We were able to do that within 13 hours from the time someone drooled, they had a PCR result. Think about that. 13 hours anywhere in the state, you drool, you have a result on your phone. So the logistics is the next thing that you really got to care about, and how we did it was, if you look on the, I think it's to your right, your left, that's all the points at which we were able to collect samples from, meaning from all the various sites. They just had to get it to one of those spots, a lab or one of those funnel sites. It would then essentially run into a depot. The depot would then sort, really make it so that all the labs could run at as smooth a process as possible. So it's collected, it's ran in, it's sorted in a depot, and then it's shot out to a lab. Keeps it all really efficient all the way across. But if you look at the reach we had, each of those little house-looking circles represent a contract. Any of those, on average, there's 5 to 6 collection sites for each one of those. Then we also have to have a technology system that integrates and incorporates throughout the entire network. So not just the result that you receive on your phone, but it has to be able to track that sample so we can reduce the time, understand where each sample's at all the way through. So that allows us to, again, get faster results, get quality results, and ensure that it continue to be like HIPAA compliant in terms of the information's also secure. Next is the importance of partnerships. It's really incredible. So it doesn't matter what the response is. If this many organizations are able to come together to do public good, you're going to do some great things. And in our case, we couldn't have done it without IDPH, without the governor's office, without the local public health, without all the work from the city of Chicago. And even on the federal level, right, with our partnership with MCC and Battelle. And then all the non-for-profits that stood up to help us out with the lab space, lab capacity. SIU stepped up and helped us get some space. ISU, Northern Illinois, both willing to put in labs. Numerous hospitals, and then all the local just community groups pulling together, literally in over 1,000 different ones. But the last thing, and the fifth thing, and the one that I think couldn't have been predicted ahead of time, but we all now know, and it seems so obvious, is this idea of trust. The fact that the University of Illinois had such a trusted brand really allowed so much of this to happen. Because with all the unknowns, people were really looking for what is something that we trust? What is something that we can gravitate to? And it really proved out the University of Illinois has that brand. It allowed us to pull together the partnerships. It allowed people in the schools to be like, well, if it's University of Illinois, it's okay. Right? We'll step up, we'll do it. We took plenty of shots as expected, but not really that many when you consider the volume of the individuals that we were working with. But it also allowed us to find really great talent. If we were just some organization stepping up saying, hey, we're going to go do this, we wouldn't have the partnerships. We wouldn't be able to get the people to come in to join us to do some uncertain job that they don't know if the job's going to be there in 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, whatever it is. Yeah, but it's University of Illinois, so that's pretty cool. We'll jump in and work with them. And we found that over and over. So this trusted brand, being able to collect, being able to have a logistics system, having the partnerships, and the trusted brand really are the pieces that over and over, if we have to, hopefully not, but likely will have to deal with something again in the future, these are the things that we need to fall back on. Oh, sorry about that. Great. So Shield, Illinois, what's happening next? We're shutting down. We're shutting down June 30. We want to have a lasting impact. And we want to have a lasting impact by helping to invest in research, get these insights, move those forward. But you need additional testing. You know, Shield T3 is also a part of the University of Illinois family. Wonderful partner to get with for testing. And then what are we going to do to try and protect the state in the future? This is all very exciting, at least it is for me. When we first came into the state, there was 5 PCR machines in the entire state that could do high throughput at a very large, like 364 well capacity. There was 5 in the state. We ordered 30, day one. We want to keep that capacity in the state. So we're setting up MOUs with most of the directional state schools to move the PCRs there, the related equipment, all of it, for them to use it for research, but also know that we have that latent capacity in the state if we ever have to stand it up again. Then additionally, we're putting in a lab ourselves. We're going to be converting one of our labs. We're going to convert it for 2 reasons. One, we want to have a lab there just in case something comes up in the future, but it needs to be sustainable. It needs to have a way of making enough money, at least be around. So how can we do some wonderful public good and continue to do that? Well, we can actually affect the labor workforce for tomorrow in terms of those individuals who are looking to work in a lab, looking to get high complexity training, looking to actually fix some of the problems that we saw in terms of the workforce in Illinois. When it comes to lab technicians, there is a national shortage. There's going to be a shortage in the future. Illinois has a shortage now. There was a lack of individuals that really had the experience and a lack of diversity amongst those individuals. So what are we going to do? We're going to actually fix that problem ongoing with a lab in the future. And how we're going to do it is we're going to partner with 2- and 4-year schools. And we're going to give them the hands-on training, the bench training, the professional development they need to be successful. And we're going to partner with various organizations to help make that happen. So this lab that we're going to have is going to be there in the future to protect the state. And along the way, we're going to hopefully transform the lives of a lot of individuals for themselves, have better careers, but also to address this need for the lab technicians. So some things to think about, some research opportunities. Really believe that wastewater and understanding it's important. We have to invest in it. We need to get some more research dollars that way. Bodie and I were talking about it earlier, right? How do we start to think about integrating that with testing, with filtration, with whatever it may be to really understand where we can go? Understanding policies, I can tell you one that I'm very passionate about. It's this whole opt-in versus opt-out and what was happening at schools and various organizations with students. You're going to hear about this in one of the sessions later, but essentially schools that chose to have an opt-out policy, which means you had to sign a form to not test, versus schools where you had to sign a form for the underage individual to test, there's a significant difference in the spread of the virus. That's a policy. Taking a look at the policies, understanding where we could have some mandatory consents in place would be really nice. Like the same way when you come to a university and you get your MMR and you get your various vaccinations you have to have in place, well, what sort of consents are we getting at the same time to be able to help do health interventions? Where can ventilation play a role? Interestingly enough, I think that actually addressing food insecurities can happen with the same technology systems that we were putting in place for COVID. How can we help address food insecurity now that we have this understanding of how to reach every corner of the state and how to get folks signed up into getting a test, no different than how they can get signed up into SNAP? If we can deliver saliva out, why can't we deliver food in? The same way that we were running saliva across the state to a depot is the same thing we could be doing with food. I think there's some opportunities there. How can the one world approach happen? One Health, in terms of the integration between animal population, plant, and individuals. We're all in one ecosystem and it's all affected by each other. We really do need to be investing in how we can find research that can help drive adoption of a One World or One Health approach. If there's any business faculty here, I'm very interested in talking to you about this idea of price and demand and how it affected capacity and the pricing of tests early on. I think there's quite a bit to come out of that. And then finally, what's the place that we should be putting in terms of nutrition, physical exercise, and other, whether it's mindfulness or other anxiety and stress-based coping mechanisms to help make a difference in terms of mental health for our students as well, or just individuals facing the pandemic. So that's all I have. I think we got a couple minutes if there's any questions, right? Otherwise, I'm staying between people and lunch. So thank you so much. Any questions over Shield, Illinois, or any of the insights? Yes, please. It is track season. We are passing the baton.
Hello, my name is Dami, and I'm from Western Illinois University. I think we've been saying a lot since the beginning of this session today, and one thing you just said almost at the end of your presentation struck me, and that is the word of One Health and surveillance. We can't do this alone. We have to incorporate One Health into every aspect of surveillance. So we are preventing and eventually we are not overwhelming our health system. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate the comment so much. Back to key in with surveillance and using One Health as a part of that. So thank you. Any other comments or questions? That's great. Thank you so much for the time. Thank you so much for being here. I look forward to seeing what comes out of this and your energy toward those efforts. Really appreciate it. Thank you.